What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we finally got to Mock Draft 1.0, a 7-round Chicago Bears mock draft. So let's get right into it and talk about the upcoming draft for the Chicago Bears. And as I said, today is finally the mock draft 1.0, so it's time for me to talk a little bit about the NFL draft, talk what I think the Chicago Bears are about to do, and just give you guys a scenario, okay? It's not necessarily what I think is going to happen, but it's a fun scenario that I just wanted to exploit and get to talk about the NFL draft a little bit, about a couple of prospects. So with that being said, what picks do the Chicago Bears have? What does Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson have to work with? We got round 1, pick 10, round 2, pick 39 and 41, round 3, pick 72, round 5, 148, and then round 7, 233 and 240. So those are the picks that the Chicago Bears can work with. So overall, we're having 7 picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. And in today's scenario, we'll talk about what happens if all the top tackles are gone that the Chicago Bears like, the defensive linemen that they like are also off the board, and Ashton Jeanty is gone. And I think that's a very possible scenario. I don't see the Bears really trading up for running back, which would be crazy in my opinion, but you never know. Jeanty's really good. There's Mason Graham. There is Will Campbell. There's a lot of very intriguing prospects that I like in the top 10, but at that number 10 spot, I think it's kind of a weird spot for the Chicago Bears to be in, honestly. It is a spot where you don't really get a true blue chip player in a key position that you have as a need. You could maybe get Malachi Starks as a safety, who's obviously a great player, and safety is somewhat of a need, but I don't know if you take that at 10. So with that being said, let's get into this mock draft and start off with the actual start with pick number 10, and we got a quick little trade alert. And I think this is a perfect situation for the Chicago Bears to move down. The Arizona Cardinals are calling and are moving up for a defensive lineman, cornerback, DB overall, whatever it is they liked on the board that's still available. And they sent the 16th overall pick to the Chicago Bears. And in order to move up, they also sent pick number 47 in round 2 in 2025 and a 2026 fourth round pick. I think that's good value for the Chicago Bears, moving back 6 spots in a very deep draft class that lacks elite talent after the top 10. So this is a very good move in my opinion, where the Bears can gain some ground, add more young talent, and still have a very good pick with the number 16th overall pick. And with that pick, the Chicago Bears, you saw it in the title and in the thumbnail, the Bears are going to select Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. And for me, that's a very easy choice right here. I think Omarion Hampton is a phenomenal player. I really like Grant from Michigan too. He's a great defensive lineman that I would love at that pick too. And there's a couple of players I would like. But I think with the running back situation right now, the Bears just looking for a playmaker out of the backfield, Omarion Hampton is a great running back as an option for the Chicago Bears. And I do have him over the other running backs that you can have as value picks on day 2 and round 2 and round 3. I know there's good depth, but there's also good defensive line depth in this year's draft class. All right, so I feel like Omarion Hampton right here is a great pickup for the Chicago Bears. Now for him as a prospect, downhill runner, very hard to bring down. I loved his contact balance. Seemed like he always made a guy miss, and still, even though he was unbalanced for a second, caught himself and kept going. Very decisive runner to the hole and then burst through the hole with some power and speed. I think he's a good receiving back on swing routes, sprints, angle routes, and screens and shovels. He caught the football a lot at North Carolina too. And then, like I said, always makes a guy miss a tackle. And he's a 3-down back in the NFL, in my opinion, so you don't have to take him off the field. And he provides that 1-2 punch now with DeAndre Swift being the lead back in the Chicago Bears backfield. He's going to be a great runner behind that offensive line, that revamped interior offensive line. And with Ben Johnson, we're going to have a very fun run game. So adding Omarion Hampton, a key playmaker to the Bears offense, would be my choice here with the 16th overall pick after trading down. Now, what can we say about his negatives? Sometimes he misses the hole and runs into a blocker, so he can still work on that. But man, he's going to have a great offensive mind behind his running game, and I think that will be a great fit for the Chicago Bears. So Omarion Hampton, number 1 pick in the Chicago Bears draft in 2025, pick 16. I absolutely love that scenario. Now with that, moving on, we want to go into round 2. Next up is pick number 39, and the player that we're taking here is pretty unrealistic in my opinion. We're taking Nick Scorton, edge out of Texas A&M, and I really do believe he's a late first-round talent or mid to late first-round talent, but you never know with this draft class. It's a very deep draft class in terms of fringe first round, early second round dudes that could go in the late first round. So if he makes it past the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Bears should actually try to move up in round 2, get a little bit closer to Nick Scorton and take him then. But in today's draft scenario, we just act like he actually drops to 39 and the Bears with such an ease pick Nick Scorton right here. Absolute dog. I love this guy. His tape was so much fun to watch. A lot of power and strength in his game. I mean, very heavy hands and he can move people. I think he's very agile, honestly, in my opinion, and he has great movement skills. He does a couple of crossover steps and also a nasty spin move that he can counter his power rush and his dip and rip with. And just generally, overall, I think he has a very solid pass rush arsenal, and then he's a great edge setter already against the run, so he can be a day 1 player that can start or be a great rotational piece with Montez Sweat, Dayo Odeyingbo, and also Austin Booker as the other edge rushers that I would consider productive edge rushers on the roster right now. So Nick Scorton would fit in right away and can be a 3-down edge for the Chicago Bears, which is very exciting. Now, what does he lack? A little bit of top end acceleration, but I mean, as of right now, I think he's a very great prospect, and the Bears will be so lucky to get him at pick 39. So Nick Scorton is the pick right here out of Texas A&M. I want this guy, and like I said, we could very well trade up for the dude. I think he's absolutely worth it. And with that being said, we want to move on in round number 2. A couple of picks later, pick number 41, the Chicago Bears decide to stay with the defensive line and select Darius Alexander, interior defensive lineman out of Toledo. Even though that interior defensive line label could be a little bit misleading because he lined up in the interior and also as a 5 technique for them, so he can play actually multiple spots on the defensive line, but he's best suited as a 3 technique in the NFL. As a player, very quick off the line, great lower body movements, like he can change direction quickly, very gap sound against the run game, and can also anchor and move with the gaps. If it's, for example, a wide zone scheme, the gaps are going to move quickly. He was able to make a couple of plays against wide zone that I like to see. Very strong punch, and he can shed and disrupt against the run. And then against the pass, he has a great pass rush arsenal, dip and rip, swim moves, and great eyes into the backfield as well. So overall, I think Darius Alexander will be a great option for the Chicago Bears early in round 2 to stack again for the defensive line and get that rotation going. And I mean, one of the questions was the jump of the competition that he's about to face from Toledo to the NFL, but at the Senior Bowl, man, he was winning basically every single one-on-one rep and was tearing it up against top-tier competition at the All-Star game. And one knock, according to some scouts, is that his pad level is too high, but those are all things that he can work on in the NFL, and he will be an immediate impact player for the defensive line rotation and will be just an absolute monster that we'll love the Bears to have in 2025. And then we have a 3rd pick now in the 2nd round, pick number 47. So let's move on. And with that 47th pick, I have the Chicago Bears selecting Kevin Winston Jr., safety out of Penn State. And I think safety is an option that hasn't been talked about enough with the Chicago Bears. Jaquan Brisker had that big head injury last year, which is obviously a little bit concerning in the long run. And then you have Kevin Byard, who's entering his last year with the Chicago Bears contract-wise. So I don't mind the idea of investing early into a great player that is coming off of a partially torn ACL injury in 2024. So his last true healthy season was 2023. So you can ease him into the system, make him learn, and then next year just hoping that Jaquan Brisker's good, we had a Penn State buddy on the opposite side of the field and just let those two guys play safety and ball out in the back half for the Chicago Bears as soon as Kevin Byard leaves. So it's just an early investment into safety, and with Kevin Winston, you get a phenomenal tackler. He doesn't miss. In 2023, he didn't miss a single tackle on defense. He made every tackle that he engaged with. Great short and long area speed. He can line up everywhere from field side safety to in the box and make big-time tackles. And like I said, to me, he's going to be the replacement of either Brisker or Byard. I'm hoping Byard because I love Brisker, but you never know. So invest early and have a great backup / potential starter for Byard throughout the season 2025, depending on how he develops. But I think he's a very good plug-and-play safety, actually, that could, like I said, replace Byard eventually during the 2025 season. So I love the addition here of Kevin Winston stabilizing the defensive backroom for the Bears. And then we'll move on to round number 3, and that's where we'll finally go trenches again with pick number 72. The Chicago Bears will select Charles Grant, offensive tackle out of William and Mary. This is your Braxton Jones competition and your future left tackle, because I can tell you right away, I mean, Braxton Jones is going to demand a lot of money after Dan Moore from the Steelers got a big back, I think, to the Titans, and I don't think he's as good as Braxton Jones, so he's going to demand a lot of money when he becomes a free agent. So for me, it's, first of all, bring in competition for right now, because I think it could be upgraded left tackle, doesn't have to be, but it could. But then for the future, you develop Charles Grant and have your first starter for the couple of weeks, months, or maybe the entire year in front of him that he can learn from and just sit behind and learn the system and then eventually take over next year. But about Charles Grant, I mean, just a freak of an athlete with super long wingspan. He is dominated in a wide zone scheme. Now with Ben Johnson, you could technically get everything. He loves gap schemes as well, but I think even then, Charles Grant with his athleticism and power can dominate there too. But wasn't a wide zone scheme something Ben Johnson also does to everything that he does? So he is used to that at least, has very quick feed and movement skills to mirror a pass rusher, and great core strength from his wrestling background that he possesses. So he knows how to move his body, which is absolutely great with his size. And for his negatives, I mean, the competition jump is going to be pretty big for Charles Grant from William and Mary, and then also the hand usage is something that some scouts actually criticized. But to me, in the third round, I'll take that shot any day of the week of getting such a high upside offensive tackle that already looks very good. It's not that he looks bad, he just got to get used to the pro level. And as I'm said, he's still learning and growing as a football player. But I mean, you have your day one starter set with Braxton Jones, as I said. So let's just learn him a little bit and then eventually take over either during the season or in 2026. As we now want to move on another round and skip round 4 and get to round 5, where the Bears have the next pick, 148. Chicago Bears go with Andrew Armstrong, wide receiver out of Arkansas. I couldn't finish this draft off without going with a wide receiver that I liked, so I'm going with Andrew Armstrong, a very intriguing, tall wide receiver that played a crucial role in the SEC last year for Arkansas. 6'4", 202-pound, very long frame wide receiver. And here's a couple of things I saw that I really liked in his game. First of all, he uses that frame and basically catches everything. I mean, he has a very bright catch radius, to say the least, and he catches everything with his hands. Nothing drops into his chest or hits his chest. Everything is cleanly caught and catches it with his eyes and his hands, so that's a big positive right there for me. Also for his long, lanky frame, he's a pretty solid mover in my opinion. Great for the intermediate area of the field on in-cut routes, drags, everything from 5 to 25 yards. He can run really, really well in my opinion. Very aggressive to the ball, adding on to his catching ability. He uses long arms and just really punches through a wall and catches that football, so no defender can actually get to him because he's so long, and he also boxes him out pretty well. And then is good against the zone too. I think he had really good reps where he found the open space in between the zones and just worked against coverage. And I also thought he had a pretty good curl rep where he actually sunk his hips and had a pretty sudden route, which was against Oklahoma State. I don't think he's the best route runner. We'll talk about that in a second, but he had a couple of good curl routes, which are usually a route that require a lot of acceleration, deceleration, hip sync, good feet. So he had a couple of good reps, which was positive for me. He's a very willing blocker on tape and always gives 100%. And then as soon as he catches the football, he's a very north-south guy, not necessarily running through you, but if he catches a curl or a hitch, he turns up upfield immediately and gets some extra yards and made a couple of guys miss. So I think he's a pretty underrated yak threat, honestly, that I saw nobody talk about. So that was pretty intriguing. And then for the things he could get better on, definitely route running against man coverage or overall. I don't think he has great feet. I don't think he is actually pretty loose. He has pretty stiff hips and is pretty upright. So getting in and out of the breaks can take some time. But as I said, there's a couple of positive plays that I really liked on tape. And then he also lacks top end speed. He's not going to beat you with speed over the top, but he can box you out and make a couple of grabs. So for me, Andrew Armstrong, big body that can just play outside for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, you got Rome Odunze, but if you want a second guy that can just be a safety blanket for your quarterback and work well against zone and just physically dominate an opponent, I think Andrew Armstrong is a great guy to add to the Chicago Bears. And also, let's just say, knock on wood, Rome Odunze gets injured, you got a good replacement with a big body. It can do similar stuff than him. Obviously not the deep stuff because Rome is fast and just an overall complete wide receiver, but you're not losing that much with Andrew Armstrong on the roster. So a guy I really enjoyed watching and I want to see on the Chicago Bears and can be a great addition to the room right now, something that we're definitely missing with his frame and his skill set. And then we'll move on to the last round that we're talking about today. Round 7, we got 2 more picks. And with that first one of the 2, pick number 233, the Chicago Bears are going to select Fadil Diggs, edge out of Syracuse. I had to bring an orange in here to the Chicago Bears. If you don't know, my favorite college football team is the Syracuse Orange. So I had to bring in Fadil Diggs, who is a very talented edge rusher in my opinion. Very much has a NFL frame. I think he's at 6'3.5". For his size, very long and quick edge rusher right there. And the big thing with him is obviously he's a big athletic freak with some great upside. I think he run a 4.57 40-yard dash with a 1.6 10-yard split. So very good stats right there on the numbers. But like I said, great size and length for an NFL edge. Great framework to work with, and he could still put on a little bit more weight and he could carry that well easily, I think, and then has some really good dip and rip reps against a couple of quality ACC opponents and just true power to him as well, and that just flashes a couple of times on tape against the run game and against the pass rush too, or as he is rushing the passer too. So for me, overall, a very talented player that still doesn't rush with a plan. So I think that's a big issue. He's still raw as a rusher, and his eyes against the run can get caught off guard a lot of times too. So he needs development. But right now for the Chicago Bears roster, we took Nick Scorton, you have Montez Sweat, you have Dayo Odeyingbo, and you also have Austin Booker. So Fadil Diggs is just a very high upside player that is not that good right now, but could develop into something. So it's worth taking a shot here in round 7 and just adding another guy to the rotation that maybe eventually will be a productive rotational rusher for you in the future. And then with the last pick in today's mock draft, round 7, pick 240, we're going big again with Asa Pole, offensive tackle out of Washington State, a guy that the Bootleg Football podcast brought to me. Just a very, very good player. I saw a video of them talking football with him and just seeing some game tape of his, and that's what really caught me right there. Obviously, he's a very inexperienced player, but overall, what I saw on tape and what I read into with the scouting reports, great movement skills, is already good on reach blocks, which is not easy to do. So physically, that's a demanding position, demanding job for an offensive lineman. And he already has a natural anchor, which is obviously great because if he can anchor, he can do a lot of things already. So that's a big plus for him. And then for the cons, obviously he's very raw. He has only 4 years of football in him yet. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, if you got a good offensive line coach that can teach him, you can really form him and make him into the player you want him to be. So I think that's a great opportunity for the Bears with a very low risk pick here with Ezapole, and then also the hand usage needs to get a lot better. So overall, he's just a project player, but I mean, he already improved from year to year and make big strides and jumps. So apparently he's a quick learner. So if the Bears can get him up to pace and get him going early, he can be our swing tackle rather earlier than later, which would obviously be a great add for the Chicago Bears. So Ezapole, big tackle out of Washington State, is the last guy that we take in this mock draft. So with that being said, that finishes off the mock draft. Let's see what we did. Amarian Hampton in round 1 after we traded down with the Arizona Cardinals. Then we added to the edge rotation with Nick Skirton. Also added Darius Alexander to the D-line rotation, added a DB with Kevin Winston, Charles Grant, a offensive tackle, then Andrew Armstrong for the receiving room, and then to finish off the draft, 2 more trench players with Fadil Diggs as an edge rusher and Ezapole as a tackle. So 2 tackles, 2 defensive ends, a running back, a wide receiver, and a safety for this year's draft class as my mock draft 1.0. And with that being said, guys, please let me know in the comments down below what you think the Chicago Bears are going to do tomorrow with the 10th overall pick. Very excited for every single round this year. It's going to be a cool draft, and expect a lot of content from me during all of that moving forward. Obviously, we'll talk about every single pick that the Chicago Bears will make, and then also give you guys a in-depth analysis, especially if I haven't seen the guy yet after I scouted that guy, the newest Chicago Bear. So with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you would have done instead of me in today's mock draft scenario. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.